repeat what you got. The question was, because I think you kind of stepped out for a second and came back. So the question was, what are your thoughts on the subject of marriage? Is it viewed as important given to the current social climate?
I was like, I've never been against it. Mm-hmm. Like as a kid, like I said, I was in my elementary, like had a fake wedding for me and my first girlfriend because we was together K through 6. So I've really been in like long relationships my whole life. Like we thought we was gonna be together. You know what I'm saying? So I never really was like against the fact of marriage. I didn't all the way understand it until I was the best man at my brother's wedding last year. And this is the first time I got to like understand what the ceremony was about or see it from my angle, you know, because I remember being up there beside him and looking out in the crowd and seeing all of our family that we was raised by and all the people that try to teach us morality. And then I heard him saying these words to this woman in front of me and them. And I was like, damn, that's what it's about. Because I mean, it's like, I don't know. It's just like, when you say in front of God, right? What is that? Like God is whatever you kind of looked up to as a kid, I guess, or an omnipresent thing, which is what you're looking at in the crowd, your family, the people who kept you out of trouble. That was God, you know? So you're looking at it in a physical form and you're looking out saying, I will protect you, sickness and health. Like that shit, that was the first time I've heard those words my whole life on movies, but sitting beside him that close to it, I was like, I got it. You know, I got the ceremonial part. Now, how much they love each other, I don't, you know, I think everything's okay. But I don't know, you know what I'm saying? I'm just talking about the actual act of the ceremony. I got it. Yeah, I would not do it. Like I feel like if I really love a woman, I'm going to want to go through that. And I say that as well because my brother was in another. Oh, you know my brother, my brother's Jerry. You know Trey. Big Trey. He Erykah Badu trainer in security. Trey Bradley, Jerry.
I'm sure I know his face.
You know,
I'm sure I do. Yeah.
He said to you. But look, so he got married. Yeah, he got married in a courthouse the first time. Mm-hmm. And then he was getting married. And I was like, bro, why don't you just go do it like last time? He was like, man, it's not the same sitting there with nobody there, one witness, and a court person you don't know. He's like, it's not the same. I was like, what you mean? It's not the same. When I was at the ceremony, I understood it. So, I mean, it's something that I would like to partake in the whole, just, you know, like it means something to me, you know, because if I ain't gonna lie to everybody. I ain't gonna lie to my woman, you know. I'm just saying, like, it does put a respect on it, in like, because you sitting there in front of people you say you love, telling somebody you gonna take care of them through sickness and health. Now I know it don't always work like that, but for me, I guess my view just kind of changed of it just recently. Because if you would ask me last year, I'm like, you know, I don't know. You know, even now, you know, I don't know for me. But the actual like people who do get married, I get it.
Could I ask? Are you saying in a way it's kind of a you're making yourself accountable, not just to that person?
Very accountable. Hell yeah, because I'ma feel mad. Like no lie, if my brother mess up because I heard him say those words in front of me, I can't lie. I'ma feel some type of way, and I'ma let him know that like, bro, you feel what I'm saying? Yeah, like you sat in front of me and told me you would make sure this woman on her deathbed had a hand in her hand. That shit means something, bro. Like, why didn't you do that? You know, or, you know, I get it. You know, everybody messes up, though. Ain't nobody perfect. You know what I'm saying?
Everybody?
Yeah.
Men and women?
What? I'm saying, okay, I look at it like this. You know, everybody goes to jail at one point. Either you can go on a traffic ticket or you can go for, like, blowing up a building.
Well, and now, in your experience, because I got some people shaking their heads, so I'm talking about, never been, never going.
Never what? Wait, hold on. What? Never did what?
Never been, never going to jail.
Oh, y'all never been to jail?
We can't say everybody.
Well, I mean, I'm a black man, so I mean, well, you know,
Well, every black man.
yeah, a lot of them. Facts for sure. A lot of them. That's statistically.
QP, you and I need to have tea sometime, QP.
Yeah, we need to.
We need to have tea sometime.
A little spike in there.
No comment.
No.
Did I miss anybody on the question? Muted.
I don't think so. Oh, it's somebody who just joined though.
Muted. Washingtons are muted.
He
said, oh.
Did you hear that?
There you go.
Sorry.
Okay.
We had two different phones working. I don't think it worked.
That's way better though.
So
yeah.
much better.
See, that's that teamwork we were talking about.
Right.
Thanks.
For me, it's like the covenant of it. You know, I am Christian, and so I do, you know, uphold. I believe in the vows, and you know, the public showing of that, and but at the same time, I don't take him for granted. I do appreciate, and I let him know that I appreciate him every day that he comes home, because he doesn't have to. He could get in his car and drive away, and I understand that. You know, it's funny.
Mexico.
So I do appreciate that, but there is a connection and a covenant and a, you know, not only legal, but spiritual and all of that. And so for me, it's for me.
So on my side, I mean, your question was, is marriage relevant now? Kind of, that was your question.
Is it viewed, as socially as important?
I would not be viewed that way, but for me, it's that way.
I think it's more important now.
It's kind of a two-part question.
So I think it's more important now than ever before, right? And part of that, why I'm saying that, is that, remember, you know, I deal with kids all over the world, and when I look at kids with issues, and when I say kids with issues, mind you, here's a perfect example. One of our programs in a youth prison. Not a detention center. I'm talking a prison. Kids that kill people and the whole nine. So I'm there every week. And to prove something to the guards one day, I did something. And so I had all the kids stand up. And I told them, if you cannot say yes to the question or to the statement, then sit down. Whenever we get to a statement that you cannot say yes to, sit down. And so all the young boys were standing up. And my first statement was, I know who my dad is. And half of them sat down. And the next statement was, I met him, and 20% of them sat down. And all I was really asking is, how many of y'all have a mom and dad that's married right now? That's it. And when I got down to that last statement, only one was standing. And I made a statement of, I didn't even say if he was a good dad or a bad dad, or good mom or a good mom. And the guy goes, well, Pastor Washington, my dad is actually in prison, and so is my mom. So like the only one that actually had a mom and dad that's married, they are both locked up in prison. And so because I get a chance to see all over the world what happens to kids, both in a macro situation and in a very micro situation in different villages and things across the world, what happens when they don't have mom and dad as husband and wife at the home, providing a very, very strong background. Now, am I saying that it's impossible for you to grow up okay and you don't have that? No, I didn't have it growing up. And I say I turned out okay, but the more things I do with my kids and realize this is the first time it's happened in my life. You know, when I was taking my daughter when she turned 7 to Disney World, and it's like the movies. You know, the fireworks were going off, and the kids turned to you, Dad, we love you, you're the greatest dad in the world. And I felt good for about 13 seconds, and then I was like, wait a minute, why is this the first time I'm at Disney World? You know. And when I go to Disney World, when I look around, one of the things that I see above anything else is dads. There's a bunch of dads at Disney World. Why? Because it costs 2 arms and 3 knuckles to get in, right? But I see that there is an issue with husbands and wives being able to raise children, and when they're not together, I don't care how great you are. I'm telling you, they suffer. And so one of the reasons why to get married is to be able to raise healthy, productive children. And there's a good thing and a bad thing with that. The good thing is the divorce rate's actually going down. And it has been declining for the past 4 or 5 years. It doesn't hit the news because people don't make money on that. They want to keep us thinking that the divorce rate's going up. It's actually not. It's going down. It's been going down. Now, a bigger issue, though, is that people are not getting married. And when I say a bigger issue, I don't have a problem with people not getting married, stay single forever, but don't try to raise a kid like that. Like that child deserves mom and dad and stability at the house. There is a difference. I have raised some grown kids now. Now I look across the whole gamut, and even their friends, like they notice a difference. There's a definite difference when that is not the case. And so now that's not always able to be the case. And I'm not saying, that can always happen. But marriages need to, if you're going to raise a child, have some help. Because men think different than women, and they need both pieces. And they need my wife and the pieces that she brings. They need me and the pieces that I bring. When I bring couples together for marriage training, the very first thing I do, the very first day, I spend the whole day talking about how they grew up. Did they grow up with a man in the house? Did they grow up with a father? The whole nine. Given whatever they tell me, I will tell them the problems that they're getting ready to have that they have to be able to look out for. And without fail, they always think that I'm in their house like the other spouses talk to me because it's issues they've already had. Well, I mean, if you got a guy that grew up with no dad, and you got a girl that grew up with no dad, well, the guy doesn't have any blueprints to be a father, and the girl has the wrong blueprints, and so she's supposed to follow him. He has no blueprints. She got the wrong one. They're supposed to build a mansion. So that it just doesn't work unless you go get blueprints from somewhere else. And so I think that is extremely important. Now, if you're not going to raise kids, right? Now there's other reasons to get married that I won't even deal with right now. But I will say if you're not going to raise kids, then okay, we can talk about that. But if you're going to raise a child, you need to be in a committed relationship, because if you don't, you're robbing that child of something.
Can I say something?
Sure.
So I have two kids. One is 11 and one is 14. And like I said, I was married for 14 years. And I think if it's a healthy relationship, yes. But I mean, and I have great examples. My parents have been married for 35 years together through it all. So I have great examples of happy marriage. His parents were married for the same amount of time. So we had good role models. But we were in a toxic relationship that was not good for my kids to see, not good for my kids to grow up around, to the point where I was suicidal and depressed. And like my kids saw a lot of stuff. Like my kids went through a lot. So even though they miss that part of it, that part of having dad all the time, I think it's more communication and working together to make sure our kids never feel like they don't have access to us, like we're not an active part of their lives. But in my case, I found it better to not have my kids grow up seeing that type of relationship happen in their home.
Well, you don't. I mean, I feel you, because I mean, I had to leave my house. Me and my mom had to get up and run and leave the house and come back and get the car. I've been through all of that. I feel what you're coming from, where you're coming from. What I'm saying is still holding true. If there is not a mom and dad in the house, there's going to be some suffrage later on. Now, I'm not saying that they can't get over it. I'm not saying it's going to destroy their life. But I am saying, from dealing with tens of thousands of kids around the world that have all types of situations that you can think of, whether coming from great homes or whatever, and now dealing with more marriages than I can shake a stick at, I've dealt with people who are now 50 years old and didn't realize why they did certain things. And when we go back to how they grew up, it was the model of how they grew up. Some people react good to that. Some people react bad to it. But trust me, there's going to be something missing. Now, does that mean it has to be horrible? No. I mean, there's if you know what you're missing, you know how to go get it. I was the opposite. I knew for a fact that I didn't know how to do it because I'd never seen a good marriage. So before I got married, I interviewed 1,000 couples that were married. Actually, that had been married, divorced, married for a long time, got divorced, married for a short time, got divorced, married for 50 years and still together, because I wanted to figure out what the heck made this work, because I knew I didn't, right? So sometimes knowing exactly what you don't have is beneficial as well. But there is some deficiency. There's going to be that. I mean, it's going to be harder to be what you've never seen, right? And so from a man, are any one of those boys? Do you have boys?
2 boys.
Yeah. So I have a whole, how old, you said they are 9 and 11?
11 and 14.
Yeah. I would definitely have you get them involved in our youth organization, Gentlemen's Society, because it's built specifically for that. Because
well, we share custody, so they're with me 1 week and they're with him 1 week.
Yeah, but they don't watch a man be a husband, right? So they're going to grow up and want to become a husband and not know how to become a husband, right? Because they didn't see that. And if they're not, and I'm doubting if dad is saying, because we teach this in a very strategic way, here's how you become a husband. Like we have a whole husband training. We have a whole how to treat a lady training. You know, we have a whole man of the house training and what that looks like when the family's there, right? And we physically train them on how to do that because so many of our kids are not doing that. So when they get, 30 and it's time to take care of a family, leaving is an option, right? Because they've seen that. Versus I'm going to stay here and take care of my wife regardless. She tripping? Okay, cool. I'm going to figure out how to fix this, right? And he tripping? Okay, I'm going to figure out how to fix it. Instead of going back to something that's toxic and saying now we need to throw away the entire relationship. I'm leaning on one of my cars, and I remember my wife was. Yeah, I'm in the garage, and my wife had a wreck, and I don't tell many people this. My wife had a wreck some years ago in the car, and it messed up the whole side of the car. And I had some guys. I thought they were going to fix it, but what they did is kind of pull the dents out so we can open the door, but they had to drill holes in it. So it looked like I've been shot at, right? Now, I drove that car for a couple years. Now, I mean, if you know me, I mean, I could have went and bought whatever I wanted to buy, right? But I drove that car for years, right? For years. And I mean, I had friends making fun of me like, D, really? Like you roll into the hood, you getting street cred? Like what's the deal? And so drove it every day for years. And one day, one of my mechanics was like, because I went to get it fixed, they were like, hey, it's $3,600 for these doors. I don't want to pay $3,600 for some doors. I'll drive it like it is. And I did. And one of my mechanics said, hey, I can get you some new doors for $75, right? And so he did. I got the new doors, and it was great. The next day, I drove it. My friends were like, man, it's about time you got a new car. I didn't get a new car. I fixed the one I had, right? Now I'm going to let that sink in for a minute. I didn't get a new relationship. I fixed the one I had. Right, it might be messed up for some years. You might have to drive it looking like you got shot up, right? But when you recognize where the issue is and where the problem is, fix it. And I think that in this day and age, we're very quick to throw something. And I'm not saying this about you because I don't know your situation. It could have been abusive. I do not recommend people stay in abusive situation. I never say get a divorce, but I'm not saying you need to stay there in the house and have to duck every day. Like that's not a good idea. But in general, a lot of people are very quick. I've seen, we're part of a bunch of marriage groups. They ask questions like, hey, if your wife is not performing or your husband's not performing, should you leave him or should you cheat? Like, those are the only two options? Like, don't, like, and we're quick to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But I think that, like my wife is saying, if we look at it as a commitment, look at it like this, okay? And I'll be through. What could your son do to make you throw him away, to make you divorce your son? What could your daughter do, right? If your daughter comes home late, if your daughter cusses you out, if your daughter does whatever, she's still going to be your daughter, right? You're not going to say, well, I'm going to go get rid of him, right? Or I'm going to go leave him at the shelter, whatever. For the most part. Some people do these days. My biological father said something that was deep. Before he died, he said, being a mom, this is the hardest job ever because it's one you can't get fired from and you can't quit. Mm-hmm. And I think that if we looked at relationships like that, we probably have better relationships, but if we just look at them and we have an out. And a lot of people take those out. Well, I think we would get into them better.
Yeah, the picking process is that very important. The picking process is the key. You have to really find somebody compatible for you. And, I have a thing that I tell my girls. I'll tell them, crazy slips out. So you have to believe it when you see it and not, like, excuse it away. Because a lot of times women will make excuses because he's fine and he's cute or he pays attention to me or I feel like this when he's around. But crazy's slipping out on you and you don't want to see it. And then later on, it's like, when you look back at all the red flags you had, it was like, you shouldn't have been in this, you shouldn't have gotten that far. It's like, so I tell them, choose wisely. And, before you think you're in love or you can't be without this person, get to know them. Like social media, because the young people are social media crazy. Like social media is not getting to know somebody. Spend time with them, see how they react when they're mad, see what they do when they're disappointed, when things don't go their way, because you're going to make them mad. You're going to disappoint them. You're going to, so just pay attention, take the filter. Don't do anything that you shouldn't be doing to get you all connected like that your filter gets distorted, because you need to be able to see this person for who they really, really are and have the courage and strength to back out if you need to,
Right on. To piggyback off of the last two statements, right on with the right on. Yes. I love Band-Aid. But to piggyback off the last two statements, I was saying earlier that I had been proposed to on multiple occasions, but it never went forward to marriage. And what wound up happening was that I came to the realization that although they were great guys, I don't take that from any of them, but neither of them were right for me. If I had married one of them who had proposed to me twice, actually, I'd be in a little town in Arkansas, miserable. And if I married the other one, I'd be gaslit to the point of oblivion, complete and total oblivion. I literally called this man out on certain actions, and his response several times was, "I'd never do such a thing. I'd never." And I'm like, it just happened.
Slipped out.
So,
telling you, slipped out.
For my sanity, I had to move along. You know what I'm saying? He was waiting on me to get. So anyway, I likewise see, or I agree with the Washingtons that I see marriage as very important. And I agree with QP's statement actually about the accountability piece. You're literally it actually is pretty easy to just say, okay, we together, and in essence live as a couple, but with one foot out the door the whole time. Frankly, because there's nothing holding you together except that, there's no real accountability in there. There's perceived accountability, as it were, and people lie all the time about nothing. All the time about nothing.
Yeah. And even from a health standpoint, you can be with someone for so many years and what they want, as far as their health situation. But if you're not their legal, if you're not married to them, you don't have a say. Like someone else can come in and just kind of do all kinds of stuff that they didn't want done. And so it's just it's not just a piece of paper. I mean, even though the paper itself does not make or destroy the relationship, but there are certain things that come with it that are beneficial with the right person,
including the financial benefits of
right.
Of the thing with children. The number one cause of poverty, if I remember correctly, statistically, among children is being involved in split households, as it were, where one person is pretty much shouldering everything.
78%, actually. 78% living poverty.
I wouldn't far off.
Yeah, you're right.
And there are other financial aspects of marriage that and listen, we can say as much as we want to.
Money's important. You gotta have it.
Systemic.
You gotta have it.
The system prints green paper that we all know we can't live without. That's one
very important.
One form of paper that the system prints as well that we can't live without. And so things are kind of interwoven in that regard.